Executives that are planning their digital strategies for 2020 have a lot to think about and a lot to navigate. But the key comes down to getting back to business and driving your digital transformation and your digital strategy. My name is Eric Kimberling, CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent, technology-agnostic, digital transformation consulting firm helping clients through their journeys. And a lot of clients are asking us lately, what do we do to define our digital strategies for 2020 and beyond? And as they navigate these digital strategies and define what they're going to be, there's a lot to think about. We've got cloud to think about. We have emerging technologies like Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. We have industry biases that we've got to navigate, software vendors that are putting certain marketing spins on their products in the sales messaging. We have vendor mandates in some cases where the vendors are dictating to us when we switch over to these new products. And we also have misinformation coming from system integrators and the other parts of the vendor ecosystems. So this is a lot to navigate, and it can make it very difficult to create a cohesive and effective digital strategy for your organization. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's all about your business. And we're going to talk today about how to let your business drive and dictate what your digital strategy is for 2020 rather than the other way around. Now, there's 5 main areas we'll talk about here today. And first of all, I'm going to whiteboard a couple thoughts. First is around your strategic alignment. So most of you probably have a decent sense of where it is you're headed as an organization, the goals and objectives you have for the organization, and the things that are making you successful, your areas of focus for 2020 and beyond. But a lot of organizations we find haven't translated those objectives into specific digital strategy types of initiatives and helping articulate how technology and transformation initiatives can enable some of those objectives. So I'm going to draw an oversimplified version of what I mean here. So first, if you look at your organization, and let's just say you have 5 primary objectives that you're going to focus on for the new year and for the coming years, the next, say, 3 to 5 years. And it could be everything from expand into new markets or to increase our profitability or to provide more flexibility, better service to our customer, to enter new product lines. Whatever the case may be, you probably have a certain number of strategic goals and objectives you've laid out for your organization. So the key is, how do we take what you already have either in your head or documented as part of your overall strategic plan? How do we translate that into specific digital strategies that are going to enable those objectives? So for example, if we decide that we want to become a more nimble and a more flexible organization because we've become too cookie cutter and companies are demanding more flexibility from us, then that might lead us to define a digital strategy down here that says we want some very flexible technology to help us enable that particular strategy. If on the other side of the equation or the flip side of that, we're looking for more common and consistent service or product delivery to our customers, it may lead us towards a single ERP system that is meant to standardize more of our operations. So those are just a couple very simple examples of how our overall strategies will determine what our digital strategies are as an organization. Now, the second thing we need to think about as we're looking to our digital strategy for 2020 and beyond is, what is it that IT means to us? There's a lot of contradicting information out in the marketplace around what IT means. What should IT be to an organization? 10 years ago, it was very common to hear organizations say that they wanted IT to be a source of competitive advantage. There's a big movement for CIOs to start reporting directly to CEOs rather than to the CFO. And what we're seeing lately is that trend has shifted and reversed in many cases. We're seeing more people view IT as more of a commodity, something we want to outsource. We're seeing more CIOs report back to the CFO or other parts of the organization rather than directly to the CEO. So there's been somewhat of a downplay or a dismissal, if you will, of the importance of IT. And just to provide a small side note and to expose some of the industry biases that may be influencing that type of thinking is, software vendors find it to be in their best interest for you to view IT as a commodity and something that should be outsourced, because if you do that, you're going to outsource it to them. So that's why when you go to industry analysts or software vendors or system integrators, they'll tell you that the trend is to outsource your technology and to focus on your other core competencies. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish as an organization. And a real simple way to think about this is as a spectrum. We're going to fall somewhere on a spectrum where IT is either a commodity and it's something that we want to outsource, and we don't really want to have a lot to have to deal with, and we may want to have someone else handle this better than we could, and it may be a way to shift some dollars off of our balance sheet, maybe reduce cost in the long term. But either way, if we view IT as a commodity, then that's going to lead us down one path. If we view IT as a core competency, then that's an area where we are less likely to go with, say, a cloud solution or a SaaS model or a managed service model where we shift everything to the vendors. Instead, if we're over here and viewing IT as a core competency, then what we're going to do is go the other extreme or to the other side of the spectrum, which is to build applications that support us. And in many cases, it may even entail not just off-the-shelf software, it may require some custom developed software as well. So we really have to look past the vendor biases and define, again, what it is we're trying to accomplish up here in our strategic objectives, how it translates into our digital strategic initiatives and our digital strategies, and more specifically within IT, what does IT mean to us? And that's going to lead us down certain paths, and it's going to help us narrow the field of where we focus our strategic areas and our strategic initiatives going forward. So let me give you a real-life case study of a client that ran into a similar situation of trying to navigate this whole spectrum that I just mentioned here. I got a call from this client the other day saying that we're being told by the vendors that we should outsource our IT, we should go with commercial off-the-shelf software, we should minimize customization. But the thing is they're a retail organization in Europe, and they're a very large retail organization there. They're under a lot of duress and under a lot of pressure from Amazon and other e-commerce retailers. And they need to be nimble, and they need to find ways to be more customer friendly. They need to maximize and optimize their customer experience, and they need to create more stickiness with their customers. So in a very competitive space like that, for them, it makes more sense to view IT as a core competency. How can we leverage technology to ensure that our customers stick with us, that we have deep insights to what our customers are doing, and most importantly, we have insights and capabilities that other retailers don't have. And the only way we're going to do that is if we view IT as a core competency and don't outsource it to a vendor, or don't assume that we're just going to take software off the shelf that every other retailer is using. So in that example, that's a case where the company is going to be further on this side of the spectrum. On the flip side of the spectrum, another client that we're working with is a fairly vanilla distribution company. Their whole core competency is in efficiency and tracking product and getting products out the door as quickly as possible. That's something that off-the-shelf technology, cloud-based technology can do very well. It's a strength of the product. And where they build their strengths and where their core competencies are is in the relationships they build with their customers. So in this case, they want to focus on their core competency, which is relationships with customers, and having those insights and being able to provide products and services to them more effectively than anyone else. And that's something where a vanilla ERP system can provide it better, and therefore they're heading down more of a commodity-based path. So those are a couple of examples or case studies that illustrate how you can determine where you might fall on this spectrum. The other thing we need to think about when defining our digital strategies for 2020 and beyond is what do we try to accomplish as an organization operationally? So again, back to the point that this is a business-driven initiative, even though there's the word digital and digital transformation, this is really a business transformation. And what is it we need to do and what is it we want to accomplish with technology with that in mind? So again, in the whole spirit of defining where we might fall on a spectrum, we've got to figure out where we are in the way of harmonization. So in other words, we are trying to figure out if we want to standardize our operations across the globe. That's one option, is to take all of our different locations. If we've grown through acquisition and grown organically, we've got a global organization, maybe operating differently across the world. This side of the spectrum would suggest that we need to harmonize and become more standardized, have more common business processes. The other side of the spectrum is flexibility, and this may be the exact opposite of harmonization. We could also call this localization. So if we're operating in multiple countries, different customers, different product needs, different business models are going to work in these countries, we may decide that that's the answer for us and we want more flexibility and localization. Right now, the vendor marketing spin that they'll push is harmonization. You hear this from the biggest ERP vendors, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. They all tend to talk about this whole concept of harmonization, But what they forget is sometimes companies need flexibility and localization. And depending on where you are in the spectrum, that's going to lead you down different paths in terms of what your overall digital strategy is. And certainly when it comes to choosing and implementing specific technologies, that's absolutely going to narrow the field for you. You're going to end up with very different answers and different options over here and very different answers over here. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you would have still even different answers there. So the other thing we have to think about is what is the right vendor strategy for our digital strategy. So I've recently put out another video that talks about how best of breed is an emerging trend in the marketplace, and one that not a lot of people talk about, especially the software vendors and system integrators, because they're out promoting one single solution, which is the solution they sell. But we're seeing more and more clients move to this best of breed model or the multi-vendor strategy. So when we're looking at our digital strategies and looking at these different areas here, defining how we're going to leverage technology to support our digital strategy, we need to be looking at all of our options, not just one core ERP system, but what technologies in general are going to support us as we go forward. And here's the other thing, it's not just technology we need to be thinking about. In some cases, it may be that we don't do anything with technology in a certain area. It may be that we have lower hanging fruit to deal with. We have process inefficiencies that could be improved just by simply fixing those processes or upgrading the system you already have. Not a lot of companies talk about that, again, because there's biases and financial incentive to sell you new software. So what we really need to look at is what is the multi-vendor strategy? What vendors do we need? What different products do we need to support our strategies? And where does it make sense to just say no and say we're not going to implement technology over here in these areas, and we're going to focus more on a business process improvement or redesigning our organization, focusing on some organizational change management training. Those types of activities can be a lot lower cost and a lot higher ROI and a lot less risky than going through a full-blown transformation. So the multi-vendor strategy is very important, both in terms of which technologies we do use and what options we look at in the technologies that we don't use. And then finally, here's a really important point that a lot of organizations forget. They don't even think about this, and software vendors and consultants typically don't think about this either. And that is, what is the magnitude of change that we're willing to take on and that we can realistically stomach? And let me draw you again another spectrum. So very simple. Over here is big change. This is the big, massive quantum leap types of changes. We want to swing for the fences. We want to implement every possible new technology and capability we can get our hands on. That's what we mean by big change over here. And over here, we look at more incremental change. We're not swinging for the fences. We're not trying to boil the ocean. We're not trying to rebuild Rome in a day. We just want to make some incremental improvements to our business, maybe implement some new technologies, maybe we don't, maybe we just upgrade, maybe we tweak what we have. But either way, it's more of an incremental change. We're still changing, but the magnitude of change is very different. And it's really important to do some self-reflecting and some facilitation to figure out where you fall on the spectrum. And once you know where you fall on the spectrum, it's very important that the rest of your strategies and implementation activities and transformation activities support where it is you fall here. A lot of times what we see happen is organizations will say, we want big, massive change, we want to swing for the fences, we want every possible technology under the sun to help us enable our business. But then when it comes to financing the project, staffing the project, putting together the project plan, we limit our time, we limit our resources, we have unrealistic expectations, and suddenly we're managing the project as if we're over here on this side of the spectrum. Now we've got misalignment and the project fails. So that's a key root cause of why projects fail, a whole topic for another video that I'll link to in the description below. But the important factor is to understand where it is we fall on the spectrum and make sure we have alignment around this too, because we need to make sure that we're all on the same page with where it is we think we are right now and where we're headed in the future. So those are just a few of the tips that we suggest to help you get started in defining your digital strategy for 2020. The whole key takeaway here is let your business drive your digital transformation. Don't get backed into the corner with specific technologies. Let your business do the driving for you. And also be agnostic and look at your digital strategies in a very technology agnostic and independent way. That's something that our team from Third Stage can help you with as well. I've also included a link below with a download to our annual ERP report, which talks about other emerging trends that you should be thinking about as you get into your digital strategy. So I encourage you to download that in the link below. I also encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and also like the video as well. I want to thank you very much for your time and have a great day.